Okay, are we recording? Yes, we are. Okay, okay. So we are back. So yeah, so we said, look, we're talking about. You see, everyone see where Yag Beha is, right over here.
Yes.
So it's quite a distance from Sukkot and Pnuel. Okay, so they're continuing with their mission to defeat the Midianite army. Okay, so we are in verse 12. Zebach and Salmonah took to flight with Gidon in pursuit. He captured Zebach and Salmonah, the two kings of Midian, and threw the whole army into panic. Right, captured the kings or the princes, kings, and once he captured them, everyone else kind of lost control and lost no more order, and they started falling apart. On his way back from the battle at the ascent of Cheres, Gidon, son of Yoash, captured a boy from among the people of Sukkot and interrogated him. The latter drew, right, so he captured the kings and they basically defeated the rest of the army. They all scattered and ran away. And now he's heading back. And true to his promise, he goes back to Sukkot. So on his way back from the battle at the ascent of Cheres, Gidon, son of Yoash, captured a boy from among the people of Sukkot and interrogated him. The latter drew up for him a list of the officials and elders of Sukkot, 77 in number. Then he came to the people of Sukkot and said, "Here are Zevach and Salmonah, about whom you mocked me, saying, are Zevach and Salmonah already in your hands that we should give your famished men bread?" And he took the elders of the city, and bringing desert thorns and briars, he punished the people of Sukkot with them. And for Penuel, he tore down its tower and killed the townspeople. We'll stop here for a moment. Questions?
Did God ask him to do that? Seems to me that before you were saying he was so specific about not he wanted to appease people, and now he's on his own hands. He seems to say, "You didn't help me. I'm taking revenge here." Doesn't seem to be something God asked him to do.
Well, it is definitely not something God asked him to do. It absolutely does not say here that God told him. And if he was doing it in God's command, I would expect it to say God said to him, whatever. And he's doing what he promised on his way there that he would do. This, I agree with you. This seems to be all him.
Yeah, but he was supposed just to destroy the tower, not to kill the people.
Okay. So that's you're right. By the way, you said that he said he would destroy the tower. So this I'm going to answer as a smaller question. So why did he end up killing the townspeople? So the commentators say what makes sense is that chances are they weren't willing to stand by and just see him destroy their tower. Chances are, this is not explicitly said, chances are a battle started. When he comes and says, "I'm going to destroy the only defense you have," that chances are a battle started, and as a consequence of that, he kills them. But this is not explicitly said. So either he's gone overboard of what he himself said he would do, okay, or he started doing what he said he would do, and they rose up against him, and that developed into a battle, and he killed them. Either way, this is very, very extreme. Also, what he did to the people of Sukkot, right? It's hard to understand from the verse itself what exactly he did, but it is very clear that he did some kind of very, very demeaning torture to the elders, to all the leaders of the city. It's unclear. When I say unclear, not just because of the way it's phrased, also the commentators have a long debate to try to understand what exactly did he do. It seems like he took all of the elders of the city and publicly in front of all of the people of the town, he basically dragged them through the fields over thorns, which basically is a very demeaning way to torture all of the leaders of the city, which is basically a very demeaning thing to the entire people of the city, to the entire city. And when it comes,
I have another question.
Yes.
What is exactly this tower?
A tower we understand to be a guard tower, tower of the city, to look out for enemies and to guard the city. So I think the most glaring question here. Sorry, I'm sorry. I'm not able to see Sylvia. I want to see if Sylvia, if you had anything you wanted to say. No.
Not really. It was just to build on what the others were saying. It almost shows like either he has a bipolarity in his personality, that sometimes he acts humble and the other time he's very arrogant, that he takes matters in his own hands when they don't do what he wants, or he's a master manipulator, being able to say the right thing at the right time to get what he wants done.
So in order to try to respond to that, I think one of the things that I think is very striking is the difference between his response to Ephraim, which was one of appeasement, as we discussed at length before, and his response to Sukkot and Pnuel, which even his initial response to them is very, very, very adversary, very oppositional, right? Meaning, if to Ephraim, he could have easily, as Ron stated, he could have easily answered back to them. They came to him very strongly. He could have easily answered them in a similar coin, similar fashion, and said, "Listen, what did you do? You barely did anything. You didn't come when they first called you, or God doesn't want you because you're a bunch of idol worshippers. And if you continue complaining, I'm going to show you who's who or what's what." He didn't answer that. He could have. He might have even been justified to say that. He doesn't answer that way. He appeases them. He calms them down. He finds a way to what's the word I'm looking for? To dismantle this possible situation that could easily become an outburst, right? They come and they fought with him strongly. Whereas the people of Sukkot and Pnuel, from the first conversation with them, it's very oppositional, and he threatens them severely, and then he goes and he carries it out. So what could be a reason for such a different response of his to Ephraim versus to Sukkot and Pnuel? What could be a cause for this difference? Any ideas? So I think that a simple answer that I can think of is because at the end of the day, Ephraim actually did heed the call, and Ephraim did show solidarity. The tribe of Ephraim did participate in the battle. They were now. Are they acting in I don't know? Are they acting completely appropriately in coming and complaining that they weren't called earlier, that they weren't given a bigger job? Okay, there's something a little spoiled about that, or they think of themselves as being more significant than they are. There's something very arrogant about it. But at the end of the day, they participated. They came and they fought and they put their lives on the line. They didn't need to. They could have stayed home. They said, okay, let someone else do it. They still have at least some sense of solidarity with the people, with the other tribes around them. Okay? Even though they're up high on the mountain, they came. The people of Sukkot and Pnuel, not only did they not join in, even though they weren't explicitly called, but not only did they not join in, they're hurting the national effort. They've basically taken sides against their own people. That is how far removed they feel from a sense of solidarity. And they're hurting the effort of their fellow Jews. It's unclear whether they even see them as fellow Jews. Jews is not the right word. Fellow cousins, brothers, anything, as if they have any, that they will take sides to come and say, listen, we're hedging our bets. We're not going to help you. Our own brothers against their oppressor. No. So as far as Gidon's attitude towards them versus towards them, the difference in response makes sense. But then we come to the question, doesn't, when he actually comes and he actually to carry out that threat also seems very, very a severe thing. And I think this is the first time where we see, sorry, just one second, Just want to check something. Sorry. Someone's trying to get a hold of me. I want to make sure it's not urgent. Okay. This is the first time I think that we see Gideon trying to do more, go beyond the role that was given to him, and try to assume and say, okay, I also need to teach people a lesson. I also need to make a statement here. And this type of thing, I think, is not just a statement to the people themselves. It's not because I don't think it's just he's trying to make a statement so the people of Sukkot and Pnuel, next time around, they will help. We can just imagine what kind of statement, this make to the rest of the tribes when they hear that this guy Gideon, not only did he defeat the oppressor, as all the judges beforehand did, something else is going on here. He's taking upon himself a greater role than what we've been accustomed to for the last few generations. He's taking on a responsibility that is new. Now, that still doesn't answer, if that were the case, then Ran, he should have said something to the tribe of Ephraim. But maybe, it could be that only now, once the battle is finished, he suddenly says, okay, I've completed my mission, now what? Now, is that because God commanded him to? We don't see that. But maybe with this first success of his first mission, he now sees, okay, I was given a task and I'm going to carry it out, but I also understand that God is expecting more here from the Jewish people, and I'm going to try to advance that task as well. So that's a possibility of what's going on here. Yes.
But look at what the role model he's exhibiting here. Jews killing Jews seems unconscionable. That we don't want that to happen in this time or any time. These are our brothers, and to say, okay, they didn't step up. Okay, there's a consequence, yes, but bloodshed, taking out all the townspeople, taking your leaders and dragging them through the fields, is that a precedent that we would want in modern times? That you have an Orthodox group that says, I don't want to be in the army. A travesty. Let's take their leaders and shoot them. That doesn't seem to be the model that we would want to have for Jews amongst Jews.
It's very ironic that you should ask that question, and I'll tell you why. Because this story is a legal source in Halakha, in the Talmud, for the fact that a king has the permission to execute a person who rebels against the king without having to go through the official legal system. I'm not answering your question. I'm adding to your question. I'm making your question more difficult. I'm just saying it's ironic that you would ask that, because you're saying we wouldn't want this to be a precedent, and I'm telling you that in Jewish literature in halakha, this serves exactly as you fear. It serves as a precedent and as a model for a concept that says that someone who rebels against the king has the permission to execute that person, even without going through the regular full judicial court system, because the reasoning that's given is because there is it's not a complicated idea, that someone who rebels against the king, this can serve as the unraveling of the entire nation, endangers the entire nation. And one of the primary sources that is used to codify, according in Maimonides and other halachic books, is this story. And the understanding is that the moment that God appointed Gideon as the judge, he holds the authority. This role of a judge is not, as we see, is not just a judge in the court. It's primarily the political leader, the appointed political leader. Now, again, I'm just adding to the difficulty of your question. And the answer I would give is because, and I would say that again, I don't think that Gideon necessarily intended initially to execute anyone. He wanted to severely punish both of these cities for the fact that they abandoned the rest of the nation at a time of severe need, and there was a need to punish them and to set an example. He didn't seem, at least initially, he did not have the intention, it seems, to kill anyone. It doesn't tell us how that happened, but most commentators understand that to be as because they then battled, they were not willing to accept his judgment. Like the people of Sukkot, he didn't kill them. Why? Because he told them this is what's going to happen. He prepared them from it. This is going to be the punishment that you're going to have to suffer because of your doubt of me and of the task that God has given me. And when we come back, this is what's going to happen to you. I'm telling you ahead of time. And he came back and he was going to do that. And to the people of Sukkot, that's what he did. And we don't see the people of Sukkot trying to battle them. And that's it. It seems as if the people of Sukkot were willing to receive, the admonishment or the punishment that he put upon them. But the people of Pnuel, it seems, were not willing to. And therefore it developed into a war, and they ended up being killed. But the verse is vague about this. It doesn't explicitly say that they battled, but this is how it makes sense to understand it.
Rabbi, can I ask a question?
Wait. Sorry, just 1 second. I'll also add, if it were not something which was acceptable, then we would expect there to be some type of response, either that God would come in and intervene and say something, or even if he didn't come in and say something, we would see some kind of development right afterwards, which is negative. Although we might. Okay, but at least immediately we don't see any kind of negative response. It's being told and portrayed as something which was appropriate to be done. And I guess, and we will see as we go through the book that one of the things that's happening in this book is to try to transform the group of tribes back into a nation, because they were a nation when they left the desert and came into the land. They were one people, but they were one people without having any choice about it. It just was the reality. And they're going through this 400-year process that has a lot of elements to it. One of them is kind of like breaking down into their primary groups, which is the tribes, and each tribe being challenged in different areas, and each tribe having their own judge who comes up and saves them, and maybe a few other tribes with them, and each tribe kind of flexing its muscles within itself towards powers outside, towards neighboring tribes, kind of getting their own sense of self. And as we go through the book, we'll see how these tribes suddenly start moving around, banging against each other, cooperating, not cooperating, until they are unified again at the end of this process into one nation again. And this seems to be a very severe kind of like breaking point in this stage of, look how bad it got of them, of the tribes not feeling like they're one people, both in definitely in the response of the people of Sukkot and Pnuel, and possibly also in the response of Gideon. But it seems to be that Gideon's response is proportional or appropriate, considering the fact that these two cities were willing to completely forsake their brethren when they're in the middle of a battle. Sylvia, yes, sorry, go ahead.
Is Gideon I may be mixing up my events, but is Gideon the one who made an oath that if he won a particular battle,
that's
Yiftach. Oh, okay.
That's Yiftach, and it's interesting that you bring that up. When we get to Yiftach later on, we will see a lot of similarities. It will be it's going to be a very big deal for us to compare and contrast Yiftach to Gidon, because the similarities are going to be amazing. Okay, I'm going to be glaring. Okay, I want to. Okay, let's continue. Then he said to Zevach and Salmonah, right? He still has the two kings of Midian, right? Because he wanted to bring them in front. He wanted to parade them in front of the people of Sukkot and Pnuel to show them, right? Then he said to Zevach and Salmonah, those men you killed in Tavor, what were they like? They look, right, meaning they look just like you, they replied, like sons of a king. So they were my brothers, he declared, the sons of my mother. As the Lord lives, if you had spared them, I would not kill you. So I don't want to delve too deep into this because I do want to try to finish the chapter. But it seems that Gidon is saying, look, you guys raided a certain area and you killed my family. And because you did that, I'm going to kill you as well. There is what to discuss here, but I do want to continue because I want to try to finish the chapter. Okay, we're in verse 20. Here we go. And he, meaning Gidon, commanded his oldest son, Yeter, go kill them. But the boy did not draw his sword, for he was timid, being still a boy. Then Zevach and Salmonah said, come, you slay us, for strength comes with manhood. So Gidon went over and killed Zevach and Salmonah, and he took the crescents that were on the necks of their camels. Then the men of Israel said to Gidon, rule over us, you, your son, and your grandson as well, for you have saved us from the Midianites. But Gidon replied, I will not rule over you myself, nor shall my son rule over you. The Lord alone, Hashem alone, shall rule over you. Okay, we're going to pause here for a moment. Okay, there's a lot here. Questions, thoughts? What
about grandson?
Oh, yeah, okay, very nice. You caught on to something here, which is they offer to him, you should rule us, your son and your and your grandson. And he says to him, no, I won't rule over you or my son. So rather God should rule over you. So what do you make of it? What do you think that might mean?
Maybe when he will have some experience, so he can do it, but not me, not my son, not me, and not the people are not ready for this.
So he's saying to them, like officially he's saying no, but he's saying maybe deep down inside there's a part of him that's thinking I would like to. You think maybe his no is a soft no, even though it is very nicely phrased, right? It's right, but right, he doesn't answer them exactly the same way they propose it. He answers only not me or my son. He should have said, right? His answer should have been, I will not rule over you myself, nor shall my son rule over you, nor my grandson. Hashem alone shall rule over you. Right? That should have been his answer. So he's saying maybe
he's leaving
an opening.
Yeah,
right.
Opening
okay.
for the
okay.
leadership.
Other questions or comments?
What about the chants from the Gmalim? What is it all about?
Wait, we didn't get that he took the gold.
Yeah.
We'll see that in a moment. Now, here's a question that in my mind is important. Where is this request coming from? They've been living in the land for 200 years. They've had several significant judges, people of significant stature. They've had Othniel ben Knaz. They've had Ehud ben Gera. They've had Dvorah the prophet, right? Where is this request coming from? Any thoughts? So I think there could be two possible answers, and there might be the same answer. because he's done something, it might be a response to what he's done so far. He has taken one step further than any of the previous judges, right? As we saw, he's dished out judgment, right? He's acted like a king. He came and he said, I'm going to punish. He didn't do this as Mr. Gidon. He did this as the leader of the army. He did this as the person who was chosen to carry out a mission by God. That is the mandate through which he came, and he punished these two cities. And as we said, he's not just trying to get revenge, he's trying to make a statement. He's moved into stage 2, even without God's command, of trying to educate the people and trying to make a statement. He didn't just win a victory and then go home. And by the way, if it's interesting, because what did this thing about rule us, you and your son? I can tell you exactly where I think where that comes from. Because in the previous verse, he tells his son, go kill them. Why? Why would someone say to his son, go kill the kings of the other nation? What would be the purpose of that?
To prepare him for leadership.
To prepare that son for leadership, and also, so in the eyes of the people, this young boy is seen as, right, as the next in line. So Gidon, this request of theirs is not coming from nowhere. Gidon either intentionally or unintentionally has either intentionally or unintentionally has allowed them to be in that mindset of this is not just someone who came and delivered a victory, maybe there's more here. But I think that the request wouldn't come just because of these little things that Gidon did. It means that I think it means that they are already feeling that there's a sense in the nation that we need a central rule. Meaning the things that have just happened here, that you had two cities. Again, it could be also the starting to understand the cycle. It's like, look, this is the 4th or 5th oppressor in 200 years that needed to be warded off. Maybe they're starting to get the message that they can't continue living in such a dispersed way. They need someone to control them. They need someone to look over them. They need someone, and along comes Gidon and taking these little tiny steps in this direction, and they send it, okay, yes, you know what? Rule over us. Okay? But it seems to be that Gidon, that's too far of a step even for him. Whether he intentionally or unintentionally was leading them in this direction, when it's actually spelled out and said, okay, become our king, he immediately backs up and says, what? King? Me? King? No, we have a king. Only God rules over the children of Israel. So there seems to be like a dialectic process here between both that we can see both happening in the nation itself, but also in Gidon himself. There seems to be this kind of like tension between kind of thinking in that direction and starting to act a little bit in this direction. But when he's actually told, okay, become a king, he says, no, God forbid, me, a king? The children of Israel don't have a king. The children of Israel have never had a king. The children of Israel have always been ruled by only God. Now, by the way, I'll just say that this tension between whether the Jewish people should or should not have a king, a monarch, a king, this is the first time that we're going to see this kind of coming up. Although we did see it in the first chapter. In the first chapter of the book, it started off by saying, and in those days, there's no king. And this entire book, from this point on, we're going to see it even happening more. We're going to see it kind of coming in and out, this dialectic, this kind of tension between, are we supposed to have a king? Or is God our king? What does it mean that God is our king? Are we, and we'll see this is going to be a tension that's going to start being there, because when there isn't a king, look, we're completely dispersed, and everyone's kind of doing their own thing, and we get to situations where we're fighting against each other, and we get to these crazy situations. On the other hand, what does that mean for the for the Jewish people to have a king? Is that instead of God? Is that in addition to God? What is that? Are we supposed to want a king? Is that a good thing that they're asking for a king now? Is that a sign of health, or is that a sign, or is that not a sign of health? Is that a sign of them losing their way? It's an open question at this point, but we see this tension between those two options. Yes, Ron.
Well, I was thinking that God doesn't rule directly. He selects Moses and then Joshua. That there's never been a time then at the very beginning when God was really visible, or now, that we don't. God doesn't speak to us and say, "Thou shalt." I mean, He did at Mount Sinai, but
that's it, right?
He always had a messenger. So God, it seems like a real, I won't say cop out, but oh no, I don't want to rule. God will rule. Well, what does that mean? God will rule. What does that look like? How does that happen? There's no. God doesn't rule that way. People don't hear His voice. I mean, he got a message from God.
Well, but Ron, based on what you're saying, it sounds like he's arguing the opposite, because it's based on that. It sounds like Gideon's response is a correct one, saying, "What king? What do you mean a king?" Meaning, in his mind, it's like God rules and God chooses how to rule. We're not supposed to go and create a king. Meaning, yeah, but of course Gideon, I agree with you. I think of course Gideon knows that God rules the children of Israel through messengers, but God chooses the messenger. But the concept of a monarch, of a king that has a son who inherits his kingdom, right? Like that's what they're asking for. They're asking for a king like they see around them, right? A king and a dynasty. He says, no, God. I agree with you. I don't think he means God is going to rule in some kind of like esoteric kind of theoretical way. Whatever God's way of ruling us, as He has in the past, that. But Gideon seems to be criticizing them, saying, "You're asking for." Gideon seems to understand their request as a request to replace God's rule over them. And therefore he says, "No, I'm not going to rule over you. God's going to rule over you in whatever way God chooses." So Gideon seems to understand the request as a negative one. Okay? On the other hand, we see he himself starting to act a little bit in that fashion. Right? Okay. So let's, we don't have that. We only have another 5 minutes. So I do want to try to finish the chapter. Let's continue. Okay, here we go. Verse 24. And Gideon said to them, "I have a request to make of you." Right? He said, "I don't want to be king, but I do have a request. Each of you give me the earring he received as booty." And then the verse says they had golden earrings, meaning the Midianites, for they were Ishmaelites. This was a common way to dress, common thing to have. And they killed all the Midianites. So they have their gold earrings. He says, "Give me all the gold earrings. I don't want to be king. Just give me all the loot." "Certainly," they replied. And they spread out a cloth, and everyone threw onto it the earring he had received as booty. The weight of the golden earrings that he had requested came to 1,700 shekels of gold. This was in addition to the crescents and the pendants and the purple robes worn by the kings of Midian, and in addition to the collars on the necks of the camels. Gideon made an ephod. Ephod is an armor. Okay, a breastplate, like a breastplate armor, right? And set it up in his own town of Ophrah. There all Israel went astray after it, and it became a snare to Gideon and his household. Meaning what? That people eventually, meaning he put it up there as a monument to remember the great victory. And he said, but eventually, what did this become? It became a source of worship. And of course, I'm sorry I'm doing this quickly because we only have 4 more minutes. What is this reminiscent for us of?
The golden calf.
The golden calf. Yes. Yes. Something that was started off as maybe not a negative thing necessarily, or with one intention. And again, gold, go collect from everyone gold, right? Same, very similar. Like Aaron said, go collect the jewelry from everyone, collect all the gold. And we see, even though there was a great victory, suddenly, eventually, and even though Gideon said, no, I'm not going to be your king, but I do have a request. Give me all the booty. Who receives all the booty of war, all the loot of war? A king. Who has the right to all the loot? A king. So he said, no, I'm not going to officially be the king. I just have one request. Give me all the loot. Right? Okay. Thus Midian submitted to the Israelites and did not raise its head again, and the land was tranquil for 40 years in Gideon's time. Now this is interesting. Usually that sentence up to now in the book of Judges comes right after the battle. But we see over here, suddenly there's this whole thing again with Gideon acting like a king, but not wanting to assume the position of king because he understands it to be against, God, the way God's relationship with the people. But he's moved himself to some degree into that situation. Okay, I'm just going to run through the next, the continuation. So Yerubal, son of Yoash, retired to his own house. Gideon had 70 sons of his own issue, for he had many wives. A son was also born to him by his concubine in Shechem, and he named him Avimelech. Gideon, son of Yoash, died at a ripe old age and was buried in the tomb of his father, Yoash, at Ophrah of the Abizarites. After Gideon died, the Israelites again went astray after the Baalim, and they adopted Baal Berit as a god. So by the way, what does this indicate to us? He had many wives, many children, many wives. Why? What does this remind us of? This is how a king behaves. Someone who has many wives and many children. And interestingly, and this is important for us for the next chapter, when it says in verse 31, a son was also born to him by his concubine in Shechem. Shechem is the capital of the tribe of Ephraim. Okay? So over here, Ophrah is his tribe of Menashe. Shechem is a very important city, which is the capital city of the tribe of Ephraim. Remember the Ephraimites that he was arguing with, and Ephraim is a very big and very powerful and very important. So he has a concubine from that tribe. Why would he have a concubine from the tribe of Shechem, from the city of Shechem? This is an alliance. Who makes alliances? Who makes political alliances through marriage? Kings. So even though on the one hand he's officially said, no, God is our king, he does seem to be either intentionally or not intentionally taking advantage of all those things that come with being a ruler, which is the loot and the wives and the political alliances. So we see the beginning here of assuming this kind of role without officially doing it and without taking all the responsibility, but at least the beginning of it. And I just want to read the last, but we also see the negative. We see already what started to happen with the gold that he took, but also we're going to see next chapter what happens as a consequence of all the wives.